Trump seemed legitimate. Like, it wasn't a game. Like, he wasn't putting it out there to, I'm going to boo him too because he's Washington. But that was exactly why he was in Janesville, was to, take his act, anti-Washington act, into the Washington of Wisconsin.
Paul Ryan, fairly tightly tied to, if you don't like that establishment, that machine, he is now the head of it in a very large way.
Yeah, he is. He's the most powerful Republican in America.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we obviously have a lot of news that we're going to cover over the course of this first hour. We've got fallout from Trump's abortion comments. That's going to be what we lead off with in just a few minutes. Interesting polling data on the views of the supporters of the different candidates on both sides. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to compare and contrast Bernie Sanders supporters and Donald Trump supporters, although we have evidence on all of them. We have an interesting Hillary Clinton ad in New York that does not mention Bernie Sanders at all, and is much more concerned with another person that's currently running, although on the other side. And, Mississippi, there's a story we wanted to get to yesterday. Mississippi is basically mimicking a plot line from Game of Thrones. And so stick around until the end of the hour, and you'll find out what that's about.
What Game of Thrones is about? If I wait the entire hour.
Do you not watch Game of Thrones?
I don't. But that's it.
You don't?
I don't have time to watch television.
You spend so much time in hotels.
I know, but I get there like 11:45 and I collapse.
Okay, well, you're missing out. It's a good show.
I hear
the new season's.
I've heard of it, by the way.
I'm sure. We do reviews here, actually.
I know, yeah.
Okay, so why don't we jump into the big story of the day. At last night's MSNBC town hall, Donald Trump got in a lot of trouble for some comments that he made about abortion. It appeared that he thought he was going to win over the pro-lifers with what he said. Instead, his supporters are now scrambling to defend him. Pro-life organizations are attacking him, and of course, the left is as well. In case you didn't actually see that exchange, here it is.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
10 cents, 10 years,
I don't know. That I don't know.
Why not?
I don't know.
You take positions and everything else.
Frankly, I do take positions and everything else. It's a very complicated position.
But you say bluntly you're pro-life, meaning you want to ban it.
But the Catholic Church is pro-life.
No, let's not talk about my religion.
No, I am talking about your religion. Your religion. I mean, you say you're a very good Catholic.
I didn't say very good. I said I'm a Catholic. And secondly,
I hate that ridiculous debate. Okay, why don't we talk about the Hindu position on abortion? No, we're talking about your position because you're running. Now, we've got a lot of people. Some people defending him, some people attacking him. I found this to be so interesting, not just because I think that it could hurt Donald Trump, especially in the general election, but it made me think about abortion in a slightly different way and question some of the things that I'd assumed, both about my own position and the positions of pro-lifers. And so we're going to get to all of that. First, obviously, there are other Republicans currently trying to beat Donald Trump. Now, they're going to try to imply that they have a very different position than him. So we're going to get to that right now. Chuck Todd was talking with John Kasich, and they had this interaction. Chuck Todd says, let me ask you this. How do you enforce a ban on abortion? Because that's where we got into this punishment thing. John Kasich says, well, look, I think it's rape, incest, life of the mother, and you build some restrictions around it. But I think you have to be very careful in the way you do it. We're a long way from there. Ted Cruz put out a press release in part saying, on the important issue of the sanctity of life, what's far too often neglected is that being pro-life is not simply about the unborn child, it's also about the mother, and creating a culture that respects her and embraces life. Of course, we shouldn't be talking about punishing women. We should affirm their dignity and the incredible gift they have to bring life into the world. Because if you want to show respect to a woman, the best way is to stop her from doing something that she fundamentally believes that she has the right to do. I've always felt, maybe I'm old-fashioned, I guess.
Well, with Cruz, there's consistency. I mean, he talks about the culture all the time. The culture, however crazy or nuts you may think Ted Cruz is, he's good at his game.
Yeah.
And he's running, objectively one of the best campaigns I've seen in a long time, sticking to what, his message is, lying about it, creating fiction about it, but at least appealing to the people he needs to appeal to.
Yeah.
And this is right there. These comments are right there, as crazy as I think that is. So he is about the culture of it. He does not talk about it in sort of punitive ways or in terms of the law and the courts. He wants the courts to change it because it's American culture. The others are kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Not that I agree, but
Kasich, we have to remember that not too many weeks ago defunded Planned Parenthood in his state. Extremely significant there. And as you're going to see a little bit later on in the show, Ted Cruz actually has supporters who are far more opposed to abortion than Donald Trump or even Kasich supporters are. Trump having the most liberal on that.
But you should also split about the other thing is that there's this whole Lion Ted thing, right? And this whole, but the Republicans themselves, and all 16 others that were in this race with Donald Trump, none of them believes that Donald Trump is really pro-life.
Yeah.
And so when he says these things, they seize on it as an opportunity also to question that to begin with. And so I think that is informing so much of this conversation that people don't think about. They say, oh yeah, there should be punishment. Donald Trump makes it up as he goes along.
Yeah, he didn't know until that second that he was in favor of punishment.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Johnny. So when he does that, it's also coming from the place when you see these reactions, Republicans who are irate over the fact that he's even saying he's pro-life.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe it.
Yeah, and he's previously said that he's very pro-choice. He says, I am pro-choice in every respect. He was even in favor at one point, in favor of late-term abortion. Yeah. And it's easy to say, look, people change. You know, you go through college, you do your philosophy class, you change your position. But he was saying this when he was more than 50 years old. And it's not impossible to change after you're 50.
Right.
But it's a little bit harder to explain or worthy of explanation, and he hasn't explained that.
Well, others have done. Dick Gephardt changed as he got older. He went from pro-life to pro-choice at an advanced age, I would guess older than 50. So it's not unprecedented, but when you change and make things up as you go along constantly, it's a totally different animal that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's what pisses so many of these people off about Trump, is this changing on the dime stuff.
Yeah, and the other people, some of the largest organizations around this country that are pro-life are pissed off at him because he says that they say that he is fundamentally misunderstanding what their mission is, and I'm going to return to that in just a second. But at least in the short term, it makes them look really bad. And there were tweets from some individuals affiliated with those organizations saying that he had, in 3 seconds, undone 50 years of messaging politically. To try to convince people that they're not against the woman, they're just against the dirty, dirty abortionist doctor.
Yeah, and that's why the pro-choice movement is ecstatic.
Oh, they love
conversations going on, because it really does. I mean, that quote about undoing it is unbelievable, because it's, in a way, it's true. It's like, oh no, they called us.
Yeah, you know? You've rarely seen political framing dismantled as quickly as that. We actually have a tweet from March for Life, one of these organizations, that says, no pro-lifer would ever want to punish a woman who has chosen abortion. This is against the very nature of what we are about, #pro-life. We also have pro-life Americans agree. The woman, another victim of abortion industry, should not and have not been prosecuted. So that's very interesting. Another victim. What I love about this, I want to get into the psychology behind it, because I think that Donald Trump, he's very rarely created learning moments for America, except perhaps about Islamophobia, but here I think that he has created one. Because these organizations are saying that they're not against the woman, they're against the doctor. But they also say that it is murder to kill a fetus. And yes, in the vast majority of cases, the woman is not the one who does the murder. But I got news for you. If you hire a hitman to kill your husband, you go to jail.
Right, well, that
doesn't matter that you didn't kill him.
That's the greatest thing about this conversation. Mm-hmm. It's like, they're criticizing Trump for saying that a woman should be punished. Well, if it's against the law in your eyes, then everybody should be punished.
Obviously should be punished.
Yeah, exactly. If you're calling it murder, you're not going to punish murderers?
Yeah, now, look, they might say what you see in their tweets is that she's a victim of the abortion industry. And so there's a very real chance that they don't see her as culpable for the same reason that women get a lot of disrespect from the right in this country, is that they don't think fundamentally that women are equipped to decide. And that they may get an abortion, but they're just being convinced by the man or convinced by the doctors. They were just shopping for baby carriages and they got abducted by an abortionist, and they don't think that the woman fundamentally can choose for herself. But I love that he has uncovered this, because if you actually believe that it should be banned, then there has to be punishment.
Right.
And if you believe that it's murder, there has to be punishment for murdering a person. Either you believe that or you don't. And look, Kasich can evade it, and he did, and Ted Cruz can evade it, and he still continues to. These organizations can imply that they don't want the punishment. But at the end of the day, if it becomes illegal nationally or in these states, then there will be punishment, and they need to be intellectually consistent. Or we at least need to force them to show that they're not.
Yeah, it's almost embracing what these abortion killers do. The people that stand outside and kill, what was that guy's name? Who's I can't believe I forget his name. He's the guy that killed the abortion.
Oh, Tiller.
Tiller, but there's another one too. Tiller,
okay.
But yeah, is who I was thinking of. They're the ones that are actually sort of putting their money behind what they're talking about. In this case.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're looking at it that way, as this extreme thing, they're stopping murder. Well, the murderers, and in that framing should, like you're saying, and like Trump is saying, in effect, have to pay a price as well. But the women, bringing the women into it is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can go to jail theoretically for punching someone in the face. You apparently think that you shouldn't be punished as harshly for having an abortion as for punching a person in the face, which is fine. But you apparently don't think that having an abortion is as bad as punching a person in the face.
Right.
Maybe you think it's a little bit bad, but it's apparently not that bad.
Imagine if Corey Lewandowski had an abortion, but Donald Trump would explode.
Exactly. By the way, your hashtag Lion Corey was one of my favorite tweets the entire year. But so they need to admit one of two things. Either they are actually in favor of punishing the woman, which is an intellectually consistent position that I 100% oppose, in which case no one is going to be on their side in America. They'll have 5% of America, maybe 10% of America, and that's it. And I believe that that's why they're not saying it, because they know that no one is in favor of that. Or they need to admit they don't actually think that it's murder. And it's kind of bad, they don't like it, but it's not nearly as bad as killing someone in a normal situation, in which case I think they're going to lose a lot of the next few generations of anti-abortion activists. Yeah. Because they're not going to be able to say, you're killing people the same as other people are. You're just doing something that we think is kind of bad, and we'll punish a doctor, but we don't really think the woman should get in any trouble.
Yeah.
And so, look, Donald Trump, if for nothing else, he has forced us to address this. And now, look, if Chris Matthews can do it to him, I want to see every reporter. When you talk to Ted Cruz or John Kasich or any other anti-abortion person, they need to explain why there shouldn't be punishment, or if they actually do support it.
Yeah, I suspect that's going to happen. Like, I think that
would be amazing.
Where this conversation now goes, because the whole Planned Parenthood argument, and before, that's how we've talked about abortion under that framework so far in this election. That might be past us now. We might now be going into the conversation about punitive abortion.
And Chris Matthews
that's not where the Republicans want to go.
No, not at all. And of course, look, I would love to do a big rundown of this. I've seen some editorials that list some examples of this. But the idea, and you saw it in tweets from the organizations, we do not think you should punish the woman. Well, fuck you, because you guys already punished the woman in 1,000 different ways with the restrictions that you already have in place. We don't need to get anywhere near a nationwide or statewide bans. You already punished them financially. You forced them to miss out on work in multiple days in some cases. You forced them to do long waiting periods. You forced them to pay significantly. You forced them to have a harder time getting medical insurance. You forced them to travel in some cases for hours, in some cases hundreds of miles away. You are all for punishing women. You just don't want to admit that you want to put them behind bars. And so, again, Chris Matthews and Donald Trump doing a service and having that conversation.
Well, and Chris Matthews, I mean, this is one of the things, I'm a Chris Matthews defender. I like Chris Matthews. I like him because I like politics. And the same reason I like John Madden covering football. It's just
they're very similar in a lot of ways.
No, they are. And they're they say a bunch of dumb things. They just love what they're covering.
He said Hillary should have John Kasich as her running mate.
Well, I mean, whatever the case, he just loves it. He loves talking about it. He doesn't get tired of it. And eventually, when you're with someone who's conversing about something that you like, at a certain point, they're going to get. And he got this out of Donald Trump because he's just talking, and that has happened with Matthews many, many times. I know there are a lot of reasons, and there are a lot of people who sit at this table who don't like Chris Matthews.
Quite often, I do not.
Yeah, and most people.
But I don't hate the guy.
No, I just think you have to take some people not as seriously as others. Chris Matthews loves what he does, and he's talking about politics. So, I mean, I'm going to watch that before I watch the Golf Channel. And I like that. And, so he gets you upset once in a while. But he does, because all he does is talk, he gets other people to talk to. And this is what happens with him a lot of the time.
Yeah, and as we said at the time, if it was Anderson Cooper, we would not have gotten to that. Because Anderson Cooper would have sat back. He might have tried to interject, but Trump would have said, "Excuse me." There would not have been a follow-up, and they would have moved on to a different topic.
And they play different roles, though, Anderson Cooper
and
Chris Matthews.
I like one role better than the other.
Right. No, I understand that. But this is meat and potatoes. This is what you want to sit around and talk about. You just wish he didn't do some of the things he does sometimes.
That's true. Yeah, it would have been interesting if he had gone on to do town halls with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. I probably would not have liked those as much in either case. But I do want to move on to a slightly related issue. So Trump had his terrible comments about abortion. Most people, even on the right, a lot of people are attacking him. They're using it as an opportunity to say that he's not actually pro-life. He's saying what he thinks they want to hear, but he's showing that he fundamentally doesn't understand their messaging, if not their actual thought process. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have his defenders, both his actual supporters and some in the media, especially on Fox News. So we're going to turn here to Fox and Friends, which has a pretty interesting excuse for why he might have said what he said.
He talked to Chris Matthews about nuclear weapons in the Middle East, and he talked to him about abortion. When you know a more experienced candidate, because Donald Trump was making $1 billion while everybody else was running for office, any other candidate, most candidates to this point would have said, I'm not here to talk about abortion. I mean, that's something that's not even up the docket. We're going to talk about it some other time.
But those are largely political questions, and given the fact that he's running for president, he's got to answer those questions. But nonetheless,
I'm pro-life.
He only became a politician about 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah, which is why people like him. People like him because he's learning as he goes, and he's not the establishment.
God, all three of those people are so silly.
But also,
in their own
it's
way.
ridiculous. The notion that what that fool Kilmeade was saying, that the idea that any candidate, when asked a question, would say, I'm not here to talk about abortion. Republicans love talking about abortion.
Oh, definitely.
They're here to talk about abortion, Brian. So that's a ridiculous premise to open with. And then Steve Ducey, because people say something because they think that they have to, says, well, he's new at this. He's new at this.
Yeah, he's only a 68-year-old man who's been running for president for 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
Why would he have
By
a
the way,
petition
Donald
on an
Trump
issue?
ran for president in 2000.
That's a good point.
Donald Trump is not new to this.
Exactly.
I mean, he's not new to this. And he's not new to talking about issues.
And it's not about detailed tariff, like pros and cons. It's, do you think women should be able to exercise their constitutional rights to reproductive freedom?
And also, why the hell is it okay for him to be new to this here, but when he's talking about foreign policy, which he doesn't have a goddamn clue about, can he? It doesn't matter that he's new to this. We need to have better people with foreign policy. It's these Fox people are so hypocritical too about Donald Trump.
Well, and internally hypocritical. It wasn't that like, oh, you shouldn't have to say anything just because the last thing he said was bad. That's the part that we don't like. But they're fine with him saying it should be banned nationally. So he's new enough that he doesn't know how long you should go to jail, but he's been around long enough to know that we should change established constitutional law for the past 4 or 5 decades.
Yeah.
That's a weird... And then the woman, of course, the woman defending him, I'm not familiar with her name. I mean, he's saying he wants to take away your rights, the rights of your friends. Statistically, it's almost certainly the case that she knows at least one woman who has had an abortion over the course of her life. He wants to take it away, possibly throw her in jail for committing murder.
Yeah.
But he's new. It's exciting. That's why people like him. But that wasn't the only Fox show that was supporting him. Fox generally anti-Trump, but there are a number of hosts that are surprisingly sticking with him. We also have Andrea Tantaros. She doesn't even blame Chris Matthews necessarily. She blames someone else entirely, which you're going to see in this video.
He walked into exactly what Hillary Clinton wanted him to walk into, which is a trap that she can take and she can push out nailers and they can get their upcoming gender war, which is exactly what they want.
Like, it's a trap. He said it should be banned. The natural follow-up is, what's the consequence for violating that ban? Right. That's a trap, okay? That's not him not having an answer or not wanting to be honest. That's a trap from Hillary Clinton, who wasn't even there.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, it's a stupid thing for her to have said. She is right on one point, which is that it sets up a gender war that the Democrats want, the Republicans don't. But that was all. But this didn't set it up. That's right. She said
doesn't
you're right.
There actually is
there is one, right? And this had nothing to do with the gender. The gender war existed already before Donald Trump came along. He just happened to make it worse.
And I got news for you. Asking him how long they should go to jail or what their fine should be, that does not set up this phantom of a gender war. Saying that you're going to try to make it illegal nationally, that sets up the gender war. She shouldn't be pissed at Hillary Clinton. She should be pissed at Donald Trump there. And then we also have a supporter of Donald Trump who has a similar sort of opinion about who's to blame for this.
It's so far outside the mainstream, even pro-life thinking. Where did he come up with that?
Well, I think you have to look at the context and the situation he was in. This is a typical trap that a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberal media do when they ask this question amongst a pro-lifer, amongst a conservative. There is no easy answer out of it because it is a complicated situation, because it's a complex issue. And I think the fact that Mr. Trump realized immediately after he got off how quick going to be misconstrued and issued the clarification.
Hold on. Was it misconstrued? He said that women should be punished. He said women. I mean, he was clear about it. Not doctors, women.
And he actually, I think he completely misspoke, and I think he realizes he misspoke and did not use the right words. That's obviously not what he means.
If he misspoke, he was given the opportunity to clarify when Chris Matthews asked the follow-up question. He was very specific. He said the women, and then Donald Trump said yes.
But I also like Scotty Nell Hughes, who I met at in Miami at one of the debates recently. That when she says that's obviously not what he meant. How is that obvious that it's not what he meant? How do we know anything about Donald Trump is obvious? What he means or doesn't mean? To me, it's obvious he is not pro-life. But it's only obvious to me because I don't think he is. But so for Scotty,
read his other quotes.
Yeah, exactly, and there's a history to it. So these people that come to his defense, like Hughes, are coming to his defense without really knowing what the truth is behind what motivates
and not
him to say something like that. Well, I think that Trump not caring.
Well, they don't seem to care that he doesn't have a strong
that's
position.
Exactly. That's right. I didn't know what you meant. Yeah, absolutely. They don't care as long as he's the guy. It doesn't matter what he says. And you notice that when you go to these. I think, Johnny, you should get out there and go to a Trump event. I'm not kidding, because you see. It doesn't matter who's on stage, and it doesn't matter the security. It doesn't matter all the things. You look at the people in those crowds, and you see what they react to and how they talk to one another. It's astonishing. It's something you don't see in America very often.
It's even more substance free than most people in America are in terms of politics.
And it's also just there's a blind devotion. You go to any other event, and I've seen every single candidate up close and personal in the past 8 or 9 months, and you see them questioning their guy or their woman,
or disagreeing with them on
disagree. Exactly, that's what I mean. And talking to us about I'm here. Sometimes you have more people. You were in Iowa. People in Iowa they'll drive 340 miles to see somebody they're not going to vote for. So they're really into it, some of them. But, the whole idea that they can question the candidate that they are actually supporting is fantastic, or doubt them, or disagree with them.
Yeah.
None of that exists with Trump. He could, whatever he says, they're absolutely fine.
And I'm not very surprised, because psychologically, like many people have said, one of the unifying characteristics amongst Trump supporters is a predisposition towards the authoritarian personality, which is directly opposed to questioning the authority figures.
Yeah.
And the final thing from Scotty's quote there is, she says it's a classic liberal media. It's a complicated issue.
She said trap too.
She said trap as well. So that maybe an email went out. This is a
Maybe.
classic liberal media tactic. It's a complicated issue, and you want us to say what the punishment should be? I do want you to say what the punishment should be, because you're the one saying we should ban it. If you want to take 10 years and go with a bunch of think tanks and work on it and figure it out, because it's such a complicated issue, figure out what the punishment should be, then push for the changes in the laws, then you could avoid this liberal media trap. But when you're saying we should ban it, when we don't even know what the consequence would be, you look like the moron, not Chris Matthews. Anyway, and look, the reason that we're talking about this so long, we've gone on for almost half of the show, is I think many people grew up thinking Roe v. Wade was so long ago, and I see in the States sometimes, in Texas, they've made it way harder to get an abortion, but they're never going to actually ban it.
Did you guys talk about
Utah?
This is educating people. Did you talk about Utah last week, the anesthesia law?
Oh, yeah, we did talk about that, Yeah, willing to risk the life of the mothers to prove a political point.
Constant chipping away is what happens. And it happens on both sides. It happens with a lot of issues. None quite like this.
None quite like this, yes. Okay, let's move on to something slightly different. There have been some who oppose Bernie Sanders, whether on the left or on the right, who have noted certain similarities between his supporters and Donald Trump supporters. The single greatest one perhaps being an opposition to the established political authorities, although on different sides of the aisle, and believing that the economy is fundamentally rigged against them. But then there's this sort of implication that there might be more that ties them together. People saying that I've hung out at Donald Trump rallies and at Bernie Sanders rallies, and they're both just always so mad, and sometimes I can't tell the people who tweet apart from those two sides. And if you don't look at the actual data, you might think, in conjunction with like one poll that came out that said that some of them might vote for Donald Trump, that there are a lot of things that are unifying the supporters, which just seems crazy. When Bernie Sanders is tarnished as this crazy wide-eyed liberal, Donald Trump anything but, we should assume that their supporters are very similar. Now, thankfully, Vox, who not necessarily generally big fans of Bernie Sanders, although they don't like Trump, have put together a list of some of the responses to poll questions on certain issues, and they've shown where the supporters of different candidates lie, and so it's an interesting way to compare them. So let's bring up this first one. You're going to see a wide variety of different topics there. I mean, things like whether immigrants are a burden on the country. Obviously, the Republicans' supporters much more likely to agree with that. And you see massive difference even amongst the supporters of the Republicans. Like Kasich supporters and Trump supporters are more different than Kasich supporters and Sanders supporters or Clinton supporters when it comes to their views of immigrants.
It's a lot of math, John.
There is a lot of math. It's not too complicated. You don't need to do any trig or anything like that.
Last word problem was burdensome. That was a burden on our country.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
The U.S. Muslims should be more subject to scrutiny. We've seen quotes from Ted Cruz and Donald Trump about that recently. Huge difference between the Republicans and Democrats. And again, in both these cases, Donald Trump supporters, Bernie Sanders supporters are the farthest apart. There's even, in the U.S. Muslims, there's a 10-point gap between Bernie Sanders and Clinton supporters there. Now, you do see...
I find it shocking. Are you down to angry with the government there?
And I find that fairly shocking, too.
Yeah, that only 30% of Ted Cruz's voters are angry with the government.
And he's the Tea Party guy.
Yeah, he is the
by the way, only
person
13%
with the government.
of Sanders supporters.
Right.
Now, granted, when they think angry at the government, they may be thinking President Obama, the presidency. And look, while Hillary Clinton has tied herself more closely to Obama than Bernie Sanders has, the supporters, probably the people who voted for Obama in 2008, are probably slightly more likely to support Bernie Sanders this time around. Because I would imagine a lot of the people who are supporting Hillary Clinton probably also liked her in 2008. But anyway, not that mad there with the government. And you notice, by the way, if we can just briefly put that up, this is somewhat reassuring. In terms of the Social Security benefits not being reduced, people are fairly consistent on that.
Yeah.
They don't want those benefits reduced. And that's why it's scary when either Democrats or Republican politicians imply that might have to happen.
Yeah, it's five. Yeah, all five candidates.
Look, and Trump supporters are the strongest against it. Although basically you're within the margin of error there.
But a lot of them are on Social Security too.
That's true as well. They do tend to be much older. Now, if we can jump ahead to this next one, you're going to see even more topics. Global involvement makes things worse. You see a pretty big difference actually between Clinton supporters and Sanders supporters, almost as large as the
Also, socially 6 points. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's not massive or anything like that. I just thought that was somewhat interesting. And so, look, it's easy to say that in terms of some of the messaging or the overall theme, I would say with significant differences, there's some similarity between Bernie Sanders' message, Trump's message, that the system is rigged in some way. But they don't even agree with the way that it's rigged, although they are both against money in politics. Their solution is slightly different. And their solutions to the other issues in terms of ISIS, in terms of immigration, obviously as different as they could be. Yeah. I don't know that this sort of information will put to rest the idea that they're basically the same people, these supporters, but it should go hopefully a long way.
And also, just because you have similar strains within them doesn't make them all the same. I mean, this whole idea, they both are sort of outside. I mean, Bernie Sanders has been in Congress, as we know, for over 25 years, but he has taken an outsider's approach to this race, and so has Donald Trump. So the whole idea that there's that they can have some similar strains, but on issues and on everything else in between, they don't. agree at all.
Not yet. Almost not.
They're taking a stand against the way Washington is run, and you're allowed to have that. That happens in every election.
That's true.
That was Howard Dean and Pat Buchanan running in the same year. It just hasn't happened with the same kind of charisma just yet until this year.
And in a lot of ways, in a lot of the areas that they do agree, all of the other candidates' supporters do tend to agree as well.
Yeah.
I've heard a little bit less of this recently. The reason that it frustrated me was I didn't very often hear anybody on the right making the case. It tended to be, in my mind, people on the left who wanted a way to tarnish Sanders' supporters. And simply saying that there's something like him, that makes it then easier to stick accusations of them simply being misogynists or simply being racist or whatever in conjunction with some of the other messaging that was going on in this campaign. I think they saw that as a shortcut to making those accusations stick as well.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. That's speculation on my part. Nothing but speculation.
Yeah, I'm going to challenge your speculation, but you did say it's only speculation, so.
So I've escaped that.
It's all yours.
Yeah.
You can have it. You can own it. Right. Some say, others.
Yeah. By the way, I love that was Trump's first attempted evasion. Some Republicans would say it should be banned.
Right.
I'm talking to you.
He's talking about his Muslim friends. Name them, Don. Name them. Yeah.
Although he would let the rich ones in.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we've got a new ad. Hillary Clinton trying to shake things up in New York, where the race might be a little bit closer than we would have assumed a few months ago that it could be. And we also have a response to the things that Trump said about his tax returns and audits when we come back to the break. the Young Turks with me, John Arola, and Michael Shore. Always good to have you back in the
It's
studio.
great to be here. It's always like coming home, except that when you get home, and this is what happens every time I walk in. There used to be like 4 people at the Young Turks back a long time ago, and then add that. Now you go through. I don't know anybody in the other room.
Yeah,
it's terrible. I feel awful too because I feel like I should know everybody here.
Well, and you come in and you don't know, is that a guest or is that person working here for a year?
Exactly. That's true too. And then I walk in. Right, and they're looking at me like, well, how can you just walk? There's somebody at the door, and she's lovely, I'm sure. She looked at me today, and was like, what the hell are you?
You basically want to tell them to recognize.
I don't even want to say that. I just want
I think you should say it, and you should do what
I want to recognize them. What happened to the guy who was the security guy here? Is he not here?
He left.
He left. That's too bad.
Yeah, that is too bad. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And look, honestly, TYT has gone through many distinct phases historically in terms of growth. But we've reached the point where I have the same reaction sometimes. I see a person, and I'm like,
new.
Is that person shadowing? 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so we're growing so
that's
much.
true. No, it's great. It's exciting, and I love coming here. It's like more bustle and more stuff.
And more going on, and it's the election season. It's exciting.
And that guy Dave Kohler's still here too.
He's still here. Yeah. Not a fan, but he's here.
That's a curiosity, but we'll get to that later.
He's been consistent. Okay, so before we get back to the political news, I want to thank a couple of our members. We obviously have a TYT membership program that you can sign up for. It costs almost nothing. It's like a pumpkin latte and a half a month, and in exchange for that, you get the full archives going back from the early days of Michael Shore, even our daily post-game show, and a ton of other special content that we do exclusively for our members. 2 of which are member number 1167, Thor Cullo. Wow. His name is literally Thor.
That's a great. His last name is literally Cullo.
Yeah, everything about the pressure on you though. You're growing up as Thor.
Yeah, like
then
there's some people who name their kids like Prometheus.
That's true. That probably puts a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
he better be jacked someday. Member number 1168, Matthias Gallus, which is less Nordic but more Roman emperor.
I think he probably goes with Matthias.
Matthias, you think? Matthias Gallus? No, anyway, it's a cool name regardless.
How many members do we have now?
I have no idea, actually, although those are in the high 11,000s. The last I had heard it was like 11,000, but I also don't. When
membership started, it was like, like how prisoners in the movies, they put, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and go like that. There was a whiteboard that they would let members 1, 2, 3, add one, they'd slash through it.
Yeah.
Now
we ran out of Sharpie.
We did run out of Sharpie. Yeah. We couldn't do it with a Sharpie.
Yeah.
The other stuff.
That's true. Yeah. No, we don't. We assume we're not going to lose them. Well, we don't need to go down ever.
Good point.
And obviously, the number of members that we have is extremely consequential because those are the people that we don't have to worry about. What we say. We have a position on this topic, and what will this sponsor think, and all of that. Because we have the members to fall back on, we don't have to worry about that nearly as much as a lot of other places do. Okay, why don't we jump back into the news? The Democratic primary race in New York is closer than we probably would have imagined a few months ago it would be. I've seen polls recently that have it at 12 points, which is nowhere near within the margin of error, but that is not a blowout considering that Hillary Clinton was the senator from that state not that long ago.
Well, this is where you're also supposed to say, and she was up 18 points in Michigan.
And she was also up 18 points in Michigan. So, assuming history strikes again, he's going to win by 35 points. But in advance of that, she is actually running ads in New York now. Now, she's not running ads about Bernie Sanders. She apparently wants to avoid mentioning him by name. But she is talking about somebody else that New Yorkers might be familiar with and some of the things that he's said recently. And I have to say that the messaging in the ad is quite good. It's a very positive message. And you're going to see a section right here.
New York, 20 million people strong. No, we don't all look the same. We don't all sound the same either. But when we pull together, we do the biggest things in the world. So when some say we can solve America's problems by building walls, banning people based on their religion, and turning against each other, well, this is New York, and we know better. I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
Now, obviously, there's political objectives to that ad, but that is generally the sort of ad that I like to see. It's positive, it fights back against dangerous rhetoric from the other side, and it appeals to what is great about Americans, so whether New Yorkers in specific or generally Americans. Do you think it's going to be an effective ad? I mean, it doesn't mention Trump specifically. It shows a little bit of his name.
And it shows a little bit from one of his rallies.
Yes.
And it's New York City centric. I mean, you see an old couple at the end who don't look like they're from the city, and there's a waterfall at some point with a covered bridge quickly. But this was a New York City ad.
That's true.
But here's what's happening. You know, she's running against Donald Trump in this ad. Clearly running against him, not running against Bernie Sanders. This ad, I don't know if it would be up if there was no primary, but it might have been, because the Republicans and Donald Trump is the nominee. He has a little more natural appeal in New York than somebody like John Kasich or Ted Cruz, and that's he's going to win New York very, very big. I think she will win New York with a healthy margin. So I don't.
But New York fairly reliably Democratic. I mean, look, he does.
It is reliable. It is, but again, this is the one state where his appeal that we've all questioned along the way could be compounded by the fact that he's also a New Yorker, and there are a lot of New Yorkers who have been given to liking him before anybody in America knew who he was.
Yeah,
as many also hated him. You know, like me. I'm a New Yorker, and I've not liked Donald Trump forever. But
up until a few years ago, I didn't have any opinion on him. I
had a sharp opinion on him for a very long time.
Wow.
But here's the thing. So, you go to Bernie Sanders here, and a lot of the Sanders supporters, because there's always bewilderment. Well, why isn't she naming Bernie Sanders in this ad? Why, he could do well here. He's not going to win New York. But this is a victory for Sanders, because the more that he engages her in New York, the more he asks for a debate in New York, the more he opens a campaign headquarters in Brooklyn, where her national headquarters are, the less time she can spend in the states where he can really do damage to her and beat her. So that's the victory in New York for Bernie Sanders. I think I don't see him winning there. But this ad is a feel-good ad for New York, and that's a big thing for Hillary Clinton to do, both in her primary race and against Donald Trump.
Do you know the primary is on the 19th? There's a few weeks. The one poll saying it's 12. God knows if it's 12 or 16 or 8. I honestly don't know. We have seen large movement in the polls, and we've seen some polls that were really inaccurate.
Yeah.
Generally, the polls have been pretty good on the Democratic side. And look, if you're looking at, in terms of Bernie Sanders' total chances, I always have to stress this. Him winning by New York by a point symbolically would be incredibly strong because it's her state.
Oh, beating him,
but losing by a point helps him towards the nomination by almost 99% as much as winning by a point.
Yeah,
because it's proportional. It's all about the delegates. Like winning by a point doesn't win him the election.
A close race helps Bernie Sanders, and I know people are going to say, "Wait, how can you say it's over?"
That's not the only point that I was making.
No, I know it's not. But here's the thing. You're right. And that's a good place for it. If there's a state, it would be a natural state for him to do well in. Now it would also be New York, even though she's from New York. He's from New York too.
That's true.
Listen to the man speak.
Yeah,
he speaks like everyone who sat around me at Rangers games sounded like Bernie Sanders. So I mean, that's exactly who we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Is it out of the question that he does well in New York?
Yeah.
No, I just don't think he's going to win it. But I think he'll do well, and I think, to your point, that's going to help.
Yeah. And that's the positive. The slightly more Debbie Downer, I guess. I see it as being realistic. Many people say it's being a Debbie Downer. Winning by a point helps. It's way better than losing by 10 points, but it's nowhere near as good as winning by 15 points in New York. Like that, of the delegates that are left, New York is a significant chunk. And so if he fully splits it with her, that's a win for him in some way.
Debbie Downer in the sense of what?
He realistically needs to beat her by 15 points. By 20
you're
points.
saying from the standpoint of somebody who wants Bernie Sanders.
From the standpoint of a person who wants Bernie Sanders to win, he doesn't just need to beat her by a point. He needs to destroy her there because there's a lot of delegates on the line.
Yeah, well, he's going to have to do his destroying elsewhere.
He might well have to.
Destroying her in New York, I think, is probably out of the cards. I mean, I don't see how it happens.
I know, and I'm not saying that it will happen. I'm saying that him simply winning is a win in multiple ways, but it's not a win in every way. In the ways that are perhaps most important, catching up in the delegates, it helps, but he needs to take a ton of them.
New York has too many big cities for Sanders to win by a lot. One of the nice things about Michigan for him that people didn't really talk about very much is that Michigan's not made up of a ton of very big cities, and one of them, Ann Arbor, which is quite big because the university is given that's sort of given to him to do well in a place like that. And then there's Detroit, where she does well. Places that have lots of big cities are very difficult for Bernie Sanders to win, and I think
he benefits from his fundraising. He's got $1 bajillion.
I got to tell you, I'm not saying that there aren't good things for him going into New York. He's a New Yorker. He benefits from fundraising. He's Jewish. He's liberal in a very, very liberal state. He is against Wall Street, even though Wall Street's there. That's also the place where the most people are against Wall Street. Yeah. So it's a mixed picture. It's a mixed picture. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to present. He's got to do well. He can't go in with a New York strategy. He's not going to win the nomination. He can't be fully in a New York state of mind. You're saying, right? It's got to be more than New York. New York. Yeah. California, perhaps even larger. Thankfully. Okay. Let's move on to something different. A little bit of due diligence here. At this week's town hall, Donald Trump once again reiterated the position in response to questions, in this case from a voter in the audience asking, will you release your tax returns the way that basically every candidate does at some point? I think it's a slightly odd tradition, but I understand why they do it. And it seems like he would uphold that since he has mocked candidates in the past, as you're going to see in a second. But there are reasons with Donald Trump that supersede the reasons that make it more important. Yes. And there's also the charitable giving. There's that too, yes. And that is a huge part of this. Yeah. Is that he touts himself as being the wealthiest this, the wealthiest that. And people don't think he gives money to charity. Yeah. And that's why some people doubt he's worth as much as he's worth, which, it bears looking into as well. But it's the charity stuff that people want to see somebody who's this wealthy who doesn't give it away at all. Yeah. And that's part of the reason behind wanting. Yeah, so, we would like to see it. He has an excuse for why he's not going to release it. This is from a previous debate, but it's the same general argument, and here is him explaining why he won't release the returns.
I will say this. Mitt Romney looked like a fool when he delayed and delayed and delayed, and Harry Reid baited him so beautifully, and Mitt Romney didn't file his return until September 21st of 2012. About a month and a half before the election, and it cost him bigly. As far as my return, I want to file it, except for many years, I've been audited every year, 12 years or something like that. Every year, they audit me. Nobody gets audited. I have friends that are very wealthy people. They never get audited. I get audited every year. I will absolutely give my return, but I'm being audited now for 2 or 3 years, so I can't do it until the audit is finished, obviously, and I think people would understand that. He's hoping that people will understand that, and in the most recent town hall, he says that he was going to release a letter explaining that he was being audited to flesh things out. We have a little bit of information. He promised that to John Dickerson as well of CBS. Oh, really? That he would do that. Yes, and so some letter has come out. We have a section from it. IRS examination finished, so you would assume, well, then can't we get those 6 years of returns? Well, no, he's got a clever trick for that, too. The lawyer said Trump's recent tax returns, the ones that the IRS is still auditing, are just extensions of the older returns for a decade plus, because they include items that are attributable to continuing transactions or activities that were also reported on returns from 2008 and earlier. In this sense, the pending examinations are continuous of prior closed examinations. And so isn't that clever? Even though we could theoretically release the earlier ones, there's just extensions now, and so it's all tied up. And it might seem complicated, but it's not complicated, because whether they're being audited or not means dick. It means absolutely nothing. There is nothing stopping him from releasing returns as they're being audited. That is simply a myth that he has manufactured. Well, there's nothing stopping him except him, Except him, yeah. Yes. Also, the weird thing about this letter was dated, I don't know, 5th of March, 7th of March. I didn't see the date, actually. Why did they wait so long to release the letter? Maybe they didn't want to bring it back up again. Maybe they'd gone several weeks and nobody mentioned the returns, and they thought, maybe if nobody cares. Well, possibly, but he's paying this lawyer bigly, I'm guessing. Bigly, yeah. To get him out of there. Yeah, I don't know. I think he runs the risk of looking like a fool if he delays and delays and delays. Well, and guess how much this matters to the people that support Donald Trump? Probably not at all. But again, look, we bring up a lot of things, or I bring up a lot of things, especially on Twitter, of things that could hurt him. And very often the response will be that people give the very reasonable response. Trump supporters aren't going to be affected by it, which is 100% true. But right now, I'm not concerned about taking away Trump supporters. They're in the cult of personality. They bowed down to the great leader. They're not going to change. I don't care about them. He needs to win a general election to become president.
Yeah.
And he has become increasingly unpopular amongst regular people who are not voting in the Republican primary.
But as somebody who wants Bernie Sanders, you're somebody who wants Bernie Sanders to be president, right? So don't you want Donald Trump to be the nominee?
Right now, early on, I didn't. I thought that him having the continuation of the rallies, the large crowds and everything, I thought that it could be uniquely damaging to American democracy, basically. And so I didn't want to experience it, even
like
if
an altruistic way. You say, well, I don't want to put the country through the ugliness.
I thought that it could have lingering damage.
That's a noble.
Which I still have that concern. Now, honestly, although I used to think that he's a good debater in terms of, I don't think he's a good debater, but he always wins debates, so I guess he's a good debater, and a good campaigner. Nobody can make much stick to him. I used to be a little bit scared of him. But now, in terms of when you look at his favorability ratings amongst certain key general election groups, I think his chances have gone down lower and lower. So now I kind of do want
John. I mean, Donald Trump has not faced Black Americans or working Americans or lower middle class Americans, or that's not true because he has faced a number of those. But when you're talking about the Union Americans, the people that are out there that are not voting in Republican primaries, and he has to face that audience, no matter whether it's Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren or Kirsten Gillibrand, whoever the names of the people that might run for president one day, they don't have a chance. Trump doesn't have a chance with those groups. And then,
increasingly
I haven't even said Latin Americans, Hispanic Americans.
No, but he says that he does great amongst them.
They love
Trump
him.
would be
They
great
love
for them.
They love him.
I used to be more scared, and it's not impossible for things to turn around, and people love to look at the general election matchups that have been coming out for the past few months and say that they mean nothing, and they don't mean everything, but they mean a lot more in the beginning of April than they did in the beginning of February.
If your guy gets the nomination, right? Bernie Sanders gets the nomination, and you are told, somebody comes up, whispers in your ear, and says, "Hey, look, that little bird that landed on him in Seattle or Portland comes up and whispers in your ear and says, hey, John, if John Kasich gets the nomination, he's going to beat Bernie Sanders."
I think he'd have a much better chance.
Listen, let me finish. The bird's not telling you to shut up now for a second. So he says, John Kasich is going to beat your man. Donald Trump is going to run an ugly campaign. It's ugly for America. You're going to see some of the ugly elements of this country. Not a chance he wins. Bernie Sanders, the next president. What do you pick?
Well, I'm running against Donald Trump.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's the choice you're going to make.
Yeah.
So when you see bad,
but my opinion is changing as his numbers have been changing.
Right.
That's what
and that's fair. I know. I understand. You evolve, and there was a reason for a while, I think, for Democrats, whether you support Secretary Clinton or Senator Sanders, to think, this guy's, he could maybe beat our candidate. But when you go down that line of people that he hasn't faced in the electorate, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. And look, honestly, when you look at all these polls and when you think about appealing to those groups, John Kasich seems like the scariest person in terms of chances to win.
Which he has none right now.
Which he has none now, unfortunately, because he has to get the nomination first. But I think that one of the reasons I have a little bit of hesitance is a bias that I had to look and identify, and it was that I can't wait for Trump to lose, to be a loser, and so I want to experience it soon rather than later.
There was a lot of Republicans who felt that way about Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
People that I spoke to out there.
They wanted to see him a loser?
They wanted to see him lose because they felt like he almost was entitled to the presidency. And these are people who
Jeb Bush felt that.
Well, in a way he did, but in a more justifiable way. I mean, Jeb Bush was a successful governor. We'll say what you want about him. He's a successful governor. He's been in the public eye for quite a while. He's been around. He's a little more substantive than his brother was. But forgetting the compliments to Jeb Bush, they thought that Marco Rubio was a Johnny-come-lately who thought he was entitled to this thing. And they all think they're entitled to it. They all think they should win it. But there was that feeling that when they were so happy to see him lose. Yeah. At his last rally, there was a Cruz person there. This was the night he dropped out. I was in Miami, and it was at Florida International University, and there was a guy there with a Cruz shirt on. I said, "What are you doing here?" Afterwards, I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I just came to see Marco drop out." He said, "I know my guy's not going to be president, but I just came to see him drop out." And so that feeling. So I know what you're talking about with Donald Trump.
Yeah, and look, so hopefully they'll continue to repeat it. I don't know why Chris Matthews didn't bring it up. Chris Matthews, I assume, knows this, that he can release it.
It might not damage him amongst Trump supporters. It might not even damage him amongst most people, although I think the charitable donations would be interesting. For me, the reason I want to see it is I am 100% certain that he is worth, at bare minimum, 40% less than he says that he is. Because I know from previous explanations he's given that he rates his personal brand at worth $2.2 billion. And that's not going to be on his tax return.
Serious question here. Do you think that's an Achilles heel within his own crowd? Or do you think if they heard
if he wasn't as rich,
if he wasn't as rich as he is, do you think some of his supporters at that point would drop? They don't care about charitable donation. They don't care about even releasing them.
Yeah.
If they're released and you find out he's not worth $9 billion, he's worth $2.5 billion.
Maybe. I think
that's possible.
It probably wouldn't, but if anything will, it would be that, or a tape comes out and he actually is in love with Muslims around the world. Like those are the two things that can hurt him. Yeah. And the reason I want to see it the most is less about it damaging him and more about that I know that it is his personal weakness, is a fear that he will be seen as not as rich and successful. We've said many times, someone who was in the Comedy Central roast of him said, the people that we roast always have one or two things that are off limits. And for him, it wasn't his hair, it wasn't his physical appearance, it wasn't his family. It was, you cannot joke that I am not worth as much as I say I am. And so I just want to see it shown to the whole world. And so maybe that makes me a small person, maybe it makes me an asshole, but he did this to me.
They Germans came up with a word for it.
They did. Yeah. That's a good word. Look it up. Anyway, thank you always. I wish that we had 2 hours, 3 hours.
I love
talking about
here.
politics.
I love talking about
politics. I feel like Chris Matthews a little bit. We could
do it all night. We should do a late night Turk show, you and me.
Let's come back.
For real though.
Edwin, you'll be here, right? You don't mind.
I've got time on my hand.
Yeah.
Late night.
They don't mind the directors.
Late night Turks. What would we call it?
I don't know. They call it old school, I think, actually.
No, that's different though. That's looking back. We're looking forward.
Looking back. That's true, yeah. Michael Short, that's what we'll call it, looking forward. Maybe MSNBC or Huffington Post looking forward. Lean forward. Okay, that's all the time that we have, unfortunately. Continue to tweet the hashtag TYT Live. We're going to have a little break, and then, of course, obviously, the second hour, it's going to be awesome. You don't want to miss it, so stick around. We'll be back in just a few.
because you're 6'10", 320 pounds, and you got a 33-pound head that you impress The Rock. And you impress The Rock with all your little Mickey Mouse tattoos all over your body. Well, The Rock says he's got a little surprise for you and the millions of The Rock's fans, and that is this. He's going to show them all your 2 new tattoos tattooed right on your ass. Which on your left cheek, it has a Brahma bull, and on the right, it reads this. Tonight at King of the Ring, The Rock sacrificed me fast, for he laid the smackdown on my candy ass. And you talk the talk. Now comes the time to see whether your body can cash the checks that your mouth's been writing. You will find out 2 things for sure, Rock. One, that you're not half the man that you think you are. And the second, and the most important, is tonight is the night of the Undertaker. So, Rock, you rest assured. Tonight, the Brahma Bull will rest in peace. The Brahma Bull symbol in flames. Will The Rock be able to defeat the Undertaker tonight for the title, or will his title shot go up in flames?
welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian, Hassan Piker, or
What's up, guys?
Hassan Piker, whatever you want to call him.
Hassan Piker.
And also Grace Baldridge.
That is correct.
All right. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name.
Nailed it. Bald like a head, ridge like a mountain.
Grace looks so fucking cool today. God damn it.
Already by saying that, people are like, she looks stupid. So good.
No,
I think
she does. She looks very
I think you look cool. It's a Hillary Clinton-esque leather jacket.
It's like a very vintage. It's like kind of like on the way to a pantsuit, but we're holding back a little bit.
Holding back
young.
a little bit.
Hillary does remind me of a lesbian at times.
Why? Oh my goodness.
because of pantsuits.
Okay, all right. Use the hashtag TYT Live to tweet to us during the breaks, during the show, whenever the hell you want, because we do read them and respond to some of them. And for everyone who is a member of TYT, you can look forward to a post-game with the three of us tonight. It'll be fun. If you want to join, all you have to do is go to tytnetwork.com/join. All right, let's get to the stories. Let's get to the good stuff. A local anchor in Pittsburgh was fired after she posted stereotypical comments about black individuals on her public Facebook page. Now, like most public figures, she has a public page that anyone can read, including her fans, and she's had some choice words for members of the black community. Now, let me give you some more context into this story. There was a terrible shooting that occurred in a Pittsburgh suburb. In fact, reports say that by the end of this ambush that occurred at a barbecue, 4 people were injured and 6 were dead, including a woman who was 8 months pregnant. The assailants fled the scene, leaving 48 shell casings behind. Now, understand that at the point that the anchor, Wendy Bell, made her statements on Facebook, police did not release a description of the suspects. We had no idea what their race was. We didn't know if they were men or women. We knew no information about them whatsoever. But Wendy Bell went on her Facebook page and wrote the following. Now, 2 weeks after the attack, Bell wrote on her professional Facebook page, "You needn't be a criminal profiler to draw a mental sketch of the killers who broke so many hearts. They are young black men, likely teens or in their early 20s. They have multiple siblings from multiple fathers, and their mothers work multiple jobs. These boys have been in the system before. They've grown up there before. They've grown up there. They know the police. They've been arrested." All right, so she's already concluded that the assailants are black. She's already concluded which age group they're in. She's already concluded what their family history is. All of this before she has any evidence or any information on who the actual suspects are. So, of course, that's problematic. If you're a private citizen who writes these things, it's obviously questionable. It's not a good idea. But it's definitely horrible when you're a reporter and you're already drawing conclusions and you're pushing these stereotypes in a public forum. So as a result, she got fired. She also talked about how she and her husband went to a restaurant and they encountered a black employee there, a young kid. And she wrote, "This child," she said, "balanced 10 glasses in one hand and a pile of plates in another. He wiped the tables, tended to the chairs, and got down on his hands and knees to clean the floor." And then she goes on to talk about how she talked to his manager and said, "You know, that kid's going to make it." And then she felt good about herself because she felt like that encouragement is going to encourage him to do the right thing in life, right things in life. And all of these other black people commit all these crimes because they don't have strong, intelligent, independent mothers. So, again, pushing a lot of different stereotypes in a public forum as someone who's supposed to be a broadcast journalist. You guys jump in. Tell me what you think.
I can't be as mad at her as I want to because it's a really emotional time for Pittsburgh. Even the district attorney said that this was the most brutal crime that they've seen in 18 years, right? And this woman has these ideas that reek of white savior complex, that reek of institutionalized racism, like this racist undertone, but it's not outwardly like inciting hate speech. So I feel like at some point we need to sit back and allow these sort of ideas to be discussed in a public forum. So when the internet gets together and immediately they're like, fire this person because she thinks this way, instead of trying to communicate with her and be like, well, here's what you did wrong. Here's what you're saying is wrong, and have that back and forth communication. Immediately the television, the local TV, firing this person is not the best possible thing to do. I feel like this is important because it opens a door to communication, to back and forth discourse.
But I think it was really irresponsible of her because she is a seasoned news anchor.
21 Emmys.
Yeah, 21 Emmys for gosh sake. Like she should have known better. That's what I was really astounded by. Now, yeah, the rhetoric could have been better. I don't know necessarily if it's grounds to just fire her like that. And a lot of people are complaining about, and they're boycotting the station. Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But they're boycotting.
Now they're boycotting.
Hold on. They're boycotting the station because she got fired.
Yeah.
Yes. Now there was a petition to have her fired that was signed by more than 1,000 people. And then after she got fired, there was a petition to boycott signed by about 3,000 people. Right. So there are individuals on both sides. But the thing that I want to clarify, Haas, is, again, it's one thing if they had named who the suspects were, and then she shared her stereotypical views on Facebook, then I'm willing to have a conversation about, hey, you know what? These are not healthy stereotypes to be pushing, or any stereotypes are not healthy to be pushing on a professional page where people look to you for an opinion, right? But it's especially irresponsible to do it before any suspects have been named at all, right? You've already determined that these people are black. You have no idea. You're not supposed to report on something before you know what the facts are. And unfortunately,
she knows the demographic makeup of her community. I'm not saying that she made this assumption because of that. I'm aware of why she made this assumption, and unfortunately, she was right. But what I'm trying to say is, I guess I'm really agitated with everyone always constantly censoring other people's personal opinions.
I know, but here's the thing. This is not her personal opinion. You want to share it among your family? That's fine. She shared it on her.
Yeah,
exactly.
So let me say something. The internet lends itself to that nowadays. Like, if you're a public person, like, everyone's a public person nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, I do this, but I have 6,000 followers. Like, it's nothing, but it's still to a degree public. Like, the things I put out there can be interpreted in different ways, and people can use that against me.
Grace, I want to know what Grace thinks about it. Well, because she was a fixture of the community as a person who provided news to that community. That's why I think it was irresponsible. That's why she should have been held accountable. Again, I don't know if she should have been fired for it, because I think it's a teaching moment. I don't think she meant these views from a place of hate. I agree with you. It's not hate speech. It doesn't incite hate speech. But it was, she should have known better. You know what I mean?
And she apologized.
She did apologize, but a lot of the comments were just in poor taste. The comment about the kid in the restaurant, like, come on. And also, not The Blind Side. This is, you're a journalist. You're a news anchor. Come on. I think what bothered me the most is her speculation to begin with, just speculation over everything. But then on top of that, making assumptions about the families that these kids came from, or these guys came from. I think that went above and beyond. You're not supposed to speculate as a professional news person, right? We've speculated on the show when it comes to ridiculous things, like when we're doing fun pop culture-y types of stories. But when you're talking about a story where 6 people were killed and several others were injured, you don't speculate. You're supposed to be a responsible person. You're supposed to wait for the facts. And then if you want to comment and you want to talk about societal issues, that's totally fine. I'm okay with it. But you have to be careful in the way that you state your opinions. And pointing a finger to the mothers, I think, goes above and beyond what you're supposed to do. She has no idea what these mothers are like. She wasn't pointing a finger at the mothers in her commentary. I thought she was saying, like, these children are doing all these things in spite of their mothers working multiple jobs. The really racist part was having multiple fathers. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Way more racist. She did talk about the fathers. Yeah. Okay, how the fuck does she know about the fathers, right? Yeah, no, they have multiple fathers. Stereotypical. Like, she's being, like, she is defining these people as how black people are portrayed in media, in the stereotypes that she's using the stereotypes. It's obvious. I get that. It's not only that she's sharing stereotypes, she's revealing what she genuinely thinks about the black community. Yeah, and I think that that's problematic if you're supposed to be a news reporter that someone trusts, that people turn to for commentary. And for anyone, look, if you are concerned about people judging you based on your opinions, and you're a public figure, you don't post those types of things in a public forum. Okay? She could have shared those views, honestly, with people, with her family members at a barbecue or something, and that would have still been not so great, but to post it on your public Facebook page where people are going to get their objective news,
that's just not appropriate. And I am glad that she's being held accountable, to be quite honest.
Yes. All right, let's move on to something different. While some states in the U.S. go above and beyond to continue discriminating against LGBT individuals, there's one college in New York City that's trying to deal with the issue of transgender people and which bathrooms they can use. Of course, this has been a hot-button issue in the U.S., but one university, Cooper Union, has decided that they're just going to take all the labels off all their bathrooms and make all of them gender neutral. Bill Mia, acting president of the Cooper Union, informed his campus via email that soon all the college's bathrooms will be gender neutral. Anyone will be allowed to use any bathroom, and the signs designating bathrooms for either men or women will be replaced with signs that say either restroom with urinals and stalls, restrooms with only stalls, or restroom single occupancy, which makes all the sense in the world. I remember we recently covered one of these stories involving gender neutral bathrooms, and someone had commented back about how it kind of makes things confusing when some bathrooms have stalls and others don't. I don't think it makes it confusing. Just label whether or not the bathrooms have stalls so people know, and then move on with your life. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, problem solved. I mean, my biggest concern about gender neutral bathrooms is that this might be TMI, but like if it's that time of the month, I don't feel super stoked to do it when Hassan's in the stall over. That's that's just me personally. I feel super weird to like whip out a tamp when Hassan's taking a shit. You know, like I was gonna say you should be more concerned with me taking a massive doozy. Yes. Not your tampon being. Like, so I'm glad that they're labeling at least. Okay, if you use this bathroom, here is like what is going to be provided for you, because that. No, it's true, because that way, you know. You know what you're getting into, but you don't have to make trans people feel uncomfortable, and I think that is a good move.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so there might be more TMI as I ask you questions, but why do you feel uncomfortable? Like you're in a stall, like no one can really hear you or see you.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and it is kind of, I think, my own just personal issues.
Yeah.
I don't like going to the bathroom next to dudes.
Yeah, but I don't even like going to the bathroom next to other people, and like I feel like it's a little different for girls. Girls go to the bathroom together. It's like a community time where they do like makeup and shoot the shit. I feel like because that would be the only reasonable explanation why my girlfriend takes so much goddamn time in the bathroom.
Yeah, let's discuss that. I know that it's not necessarily related to the transgender issue, but there is nothing that annoys me more than women that take their time in public restrooms.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out. Okay?
I can't
urinate, do your thing, get out.
I don't want to be around anyone else. I don't want to be around anyone else when I'm in a public bathroom. Like I'm comfortable doing the deed in a public bathroom. I don't want to be around other people. Like it's a private moment for me.
My thing, I think, and I'm really searching myself for these answers, is I think that, like, I would come out of the stall and then I would see you or some other guy and they would know, like, oh, she's seeing red right now. And they'd be like, no,
why the period?
I don't know. Periods suck, and I just feel like it's the thing that I wouldn't want other people to know that you're on, because then it's like it becomes a thing that they can point at you like, well, you're being a bitch because you're bleeding.
But I feel like, so it's interesting because now all of a sudden, making these bathrooms gender neutral is bringing up all of these issues that maybe people haven't really considered, and it's kind of making me realize that we've been conditioned to think certain things about certain people, right? Yes. Regardless of whether or not they're part of the transgender community or LGBT community. And so, as women, we feel shame for some reason because...
Yeah, because women don't...
Yeah, that's 100% it. Yeah, I think there is a level of shame. Yeah, I'm actually kind of glad we talked about this. I'm learning a lot about myself. Right. I think there is a level of shame, and that's why... when you're talking about gender-neutral bathrooms, I want the nomers to be on the door, like, okay, this is in here, this goes in here, so I know, like, how I can hide from my shame as much as possible when I go out and wash my hands.
But what I'm hoping will happen as we progress in this issue is that we become more comfortable about the fact that we're humans and we have human bodily functions.
Yes.
And it's not the end of the world, right?
The point I'm trying to make is it's going to be weird and kind of disgusting regardless of the gender of the person. It's like being in a bathroom where other people's fecal matter is in the air and you're literally inhaling it is just an inherently disgusting situation, especially when I lay it out like that. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man in the bathroom together. It's just overall we're disgusted by it.
But
We're not
I mean,
literally
big ups to
inhaling fecal matter.
No, you are. When you're in the bathroom,
the scent of fecal matter.
Okay, I'm just saying, it's like little particles in the air that are going into your nose hair, and your nose hair is picking it up. That's why you're smelling it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's literally what's happening. And I don't care if it's a woman's or a man's or a transgender person's. I don't care. It's just nasty regardless. And that's my personal preference. But I feel like that's why people look at this issue a little differently.
Yeah, look, I want people to use the bathrooms with the gender that they identify with. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all I want, right? And public bathrooms have all sorts of uncomfortable moments, and we have to deal with all sorts of unsanitary situations. That's just the way public bathrooms are. And I don't know, I'm willing to deal with it and just accept the fact that people need to feel comfortable and people need to use the bathrooms that they identify with.
Yeah, and the recent discourse where we focus so much on how trans people go to the bathroom is so dumb.
Yes.
And I like that we're seeing a move recently to just every human person just wants to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And not focusing on what parts, or just the whole idea of focusing on the genitalia of a person is silly. And
no,
how
but
they
I
go
do
to the
get it,
bathroom
because
is stupid. I'm glad we're throwing out that argument.
Because there's so many different segments that we are just learning in the LGBT community, and I personally don't care. But I understand why another why a 60-year-old person, a 60-year-old Christian from the South, would be a little worried and a little concerned with that, because that's just the way they've been programmed.
What are they worried about?
I think they're worried about their children going to the bathroom with a person who is a man, or does he have a penis? Does he not have a penis? Is he a she now? So this is new, and we're learning as we go along.
We are learning as we go along, but understand that a lot of that is fueled by ignorance, and a lot of it is fueled by paranoia and fear. And the way that they frame the argument against gender-neutral bathrooms is not like, oh my God, I don't want to hear someone pee, or I'm worried about smelling fecal matter. What they're worried about, and it's ridiculous, is that people are doing it for pervy reasons.
Yeah.
People are not going to change their identity and go through the hell of discrimination because they want to see your little girl pee in the bathroom. That's just not the way it works. And by the way, women have stalls, okay? Women aren't openly peeing in front of everyone. I know people think that for some weird reason, but we're in our stalls, we do our business, and we get out. Unless you're in a club in LA in the middle of the night and women are just hanging out in a weird bathroom because they want to make my life miserable.
No, because they're doing cocaine.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Cocaine.
Okay. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, one state is trying to fight back against revenge porn. The lobbyists in Hollywood are against it. I'll tell you why. TYT live tweets today are on fire. Carl Lovelt, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, says, we have the hun, the bun,
Oh God.
and the fun. Hey! All right.
I was expecting like maybe something.
And the lesbian.
Yeah, it's like the hun, the bun, and a huge lesbian. I'd be like, oh, it's super. Thanks, man.
No, I love that.
I'm fun.
Carl,
God damn it, I'm fun.
I want to be fun. I don't want to be the hun if she's gonna get the.
Then you
be
probably
the fun
shouldn't
one.
call yourself Hassan the Hun, you piece of shit.
I'm gonna change it to Hassan the Fun.
Yeah, Hassan the Fun. Do it.
I'm fun, guys.
Okay.
I swear.
There's more that I love. Shit physicist says, leather jackets always look good. Fucking get it. Yes. Love it. And then we have your mama saying, I'm also getting tired of knee-jerk firings for ignorance. They need to start a conversation to educate, otherwise no one learns. Okay, so it's interesting because I used to be in the camp of fire her. It's unprofessional, fire her, right? But I am evolving on this issue, not because I agree with her or I think that, she's necessarily going to change her viewpoints, but I realize that by just firing someone, it's kind of like brushing the issue under the rug, right? It's like almost neglecting the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to give people second chances. And I think that she had a long, successful career.
21 Emmys, guys.
21 Emmys, and there's a reason for that. And what she wrote was extremely ignorant, and of course I disagree with it. But I think it is important to start a dialogue and have honest discussions about these things. I think there should be some sort of punishment, like maybe, hey, you know what, you're suspended for like a few days or whatever. But there needs to be a serious discussion had, Because look, there have been moments where I've said ignorant things on the show, and Cenk could have very easily fired me, but he didn't. I remember one time I got into a huge argument with a woman about cultural appropriation on Twitter. I continued saying ignorant things online, and then I was like, what am I doing right now? I don't really know about this issue. I need to look into it further, and I learned through that, and that's important. So, good point, your mama.
Good point, yo mama.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Annette says, but Annette disagrees a little bit. She says she used the tragedy to say it was black people, we need to fix the black community, which is in poor taste to say the least. I agree it was in poor taste. I also think we should have that dialogue. And Zinni says, just make the stalls have full walls and real doors and we'll all be fine, guys. Put in extra fans, we'll be fine. Referring to us literally inhaling the fecal matter.
No, but you do. I got a tweet on here too. Do you want me to read a TYT live tweet? I got it lined up. This guy was like, Hassan the Hun, you're super right. It is fecal matter that you guys are. I'm not really reading the tweet. But no, it said, Sean O'Neill said, alas, Hassan the Hun is right. Smells are particulate and poo particles are particularly off-putting.
So, but like, is it literally tangible?
Yes,
particles?
It's very small particles of poop that your nose hairs suck up. That's
some
literally
of us
what
have more nose hairs than others.
Okay, I don't want to continue this conversation because I don't know what the reality is, and I'm worried you don't know what the reality is. So, okay, let's
amazing.
Move on. Take what we just said with a grain of salt because I have no idea. Okay, let's move on. Minnesota is fighting to ban revenge porn. In fact, there are currently 27 states in the U.S. that have either banned it or have some restrictions pertaining to it. However, there is an unusual lobbying group that's fighting against the ban of revenge porn in Minnesota. At least they're fighting the way that this legislation is written. Now, that lobbying group, or that group, I should say, that is lobbying against this law is the Motion Picture Association of America. Now, this is the movie industry's major lobbying arm, has for what it's believed to be the first time weighed in on a revenge porn bill, Minnesota's HF 2741. At issue is a provision in the bill that the person who releases such photos or videos doesn't have to actually desire to harm the person depicted for it to be considered a crime. So this is really a question of intent. And what the lawmakers in Minnesota want to do is ensure that it doesn't matter what the intent is. If you post someone's nude pictures or videos online without their consent, it's considered revenge porn and it should be banned. Now, the MPAA worries that this could hamper the distribution of explicit but newsworthy material, like images of Holocaust victims or prisoners at Abu Ghraib.
Or Hulk Hogan's sex tape.
Well, Hulk Hogan's sex tape would be banned.
I know.
And it should be banned.
That was a joke.
And it should be banned. Exactly.
I was making a joke.
I'm bad at picking up jokes, I guess. But it's interesting because I feel like there are stories and issues where it's very clear that it's not revenge porn. So Abu Ghraib is not revenge porn. It was a news story involving our, members of the military abusing people in a prison and abusing them as they were naked. There's a newsworthy element to that, right? It's very different from revenge porn. And the bill's sponsor said the following: this bill cannot plausibly be read as a threat to the distribution of constitutionally protected material of legitimate interest to the public. What say you?
I want to hear what you have to say.
I was going to say, first of all, I just want to start out by saying amateur porn is my favorite type of porn because it's real depictions of sex. Having said that, revenge porn is terrible and has terrible consequences. I've done many stories on this on Pop Crunch and other outlets on TYT. It should be federally regulated at this point, and it's ridiculous. And the steps that you need to take in order to get revenge porn off the internet is equally outrageous. And go check out my Pop Crunch videos if you want to see that.
Look at you with your shameless plug.
I know, I'm just going to shamelessly plug myself. Having said that, I do not understand why the motion, immediately I thought the MPAA has to do something, has to have some sort of financial interest in ensuring that revenge porn gets
some protection.
Yeah, some protection in Minnesota. Because what reason would they have? Because the grounds that they stated are really weird. It doesn't seem plausible enough that they're trying to protect revenge porn laws, or at least trying to amend the regulation of it by adding in that item of you need to specify that there is intent to harm another person.
Yeah.
I don't
understand
why.
Understand that when it comes to intent is a very difficult thing to prove in court.
Exactly.
So the reason why Minnesota, or the lawmakers in Minnesota, are drafting this legislation in the way that they are is because they don't want cases like this to come to court, and they're immediately dismissed because it's so difficult to prove intent. Grace.
Yeah.
Guys, I will be really honest with you. I'm kind of thinking about what Hassan is saying. I don't know what the play is here.
Yeah.
I'm very confused. I've read this article, I've read some other articles trying to figure out what possibly could the MPAA have to gain.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be a financial interest, and the examples that they're citing, it just doesn't add up to me.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, well, I'm an idiot comedian. What am I not seeing here? Because it seems so clear cut that they would want to protect the images of their, biggest hitters.
Do they have some sort of weird revenge porn website that operates out of Minnesota or something?
I think that they might be worried about maybe an actress who's agreed to a nude scene and then later she changes her mind, but they want to include the nude scene. I have no idea what their intentions are, and I look
contractual obligation at that point.
She does, exactly.
So many different reasons as to why that will still be.
But maybe it's when these nude photos come out that it becomes, people talk about these stars more, and I don't know. This is kind of this is kind of a gross way to think about it. But say that nude photos come out of a celebrity or an actress, and then we see that she's incredibly hot, and then there's a star. Yeah, there's star factor.
There's no way.
You don't think that happened?
Look, hold on, guys. Hold on. At this point, all we're doing is speculating as to what their reasons are.
Specifically for Minnesota, understand that this is only a precedent being set forward in Minnesota. It's already in 27 states. It's not federal. But why would they specifically protect Minnesota? It doesn't make sense. Everything else makes sense. I even kind of understand the clauses they're trying to put in there. If you want to think that every judge is going to immediately be like, oh well, there's the precedent. Sorry, no more Schindler's List. That's
So I could understand if this was the lobbying arm of let's say broadcast journalists, and they want to air stories involving. Look, we did the Trump story where one 15-year-old alleged that she was groped, right? Now, we don't have surveillance of her being groped, but let's say a news organization wants to show that, or someone grabbing her breast, to basically provide evidence to the audience that actually did occur. Would that be protected under this type of legislation? Because it's sexual in nature, you don't necessarily have the 15-year-old's consent.
And it's underage.
And that's true. It's underage. So there's a lot of different things that play a role in that. And remember, when you're in public, you have no expectation of privacy. So that also plays a role. But I really don't understand what the reasoning is behind the Motion Picture Association's lobbying against this. I think
and also why specifically Minnesota? Because this law is passed in
Right.
27 other states. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Unfortunately, we don't know because they're not necessarily being honest with what their intentions are. But I do think it's important to protect the privacy of everyone, okay? The Hulk Hogan story came out. I was disgusted by it. Hulk Hogan is a dude, and he deserves his privacy just as much as female celebrities or private individuals deserve. So
Even if he's secretly a racist.
he's not secretly a racist. I think he's pretty
he's pretty open
about
now he's very openly
Yeah,
racist. But.
exactly. All right, moving on to something completely different.
But not so much.
Not totally different though.
Not so much.
Kind of related to our engaging in sexual rendezvous in the park across the street from where he lives. Then he decided to set up some surveillance cameras and then report these individuals to authorities. Now we have a quick video explaining exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it. Let's take a look.
This couple is getting frisky out in the open for any passerby to see. Afterwards, they adjust their clothing, then take off. Here, another couple cuddles, then gets behind the wheel and drives away. And these lovebirds climb into the back of their car. As things get steamy, Marty, the neighborhood watchman, actually confronts them.
I'm just a guy that is protecting my neighborhood and my family.
Marty, the neighborhood watchman, is secretly recording them.
Oh, God. Oh, so wrong. Especially when I saw Marty. I never had visualized him until this moment. I read that he was a concrete salesman, but God damn, he is creepy looking.
Okay, all right.
Well, he has to not actually. Marty isn't his real name. He has to not use.
Whatever. I want to call him Marty. I like
I think we can pretty much figure out who he is. Not that we should, because there's a right to privacy that I guess Marty doesn't.
There's no right to privacy when you go on local television. You're
No,
like,
I'm trying to draw how it's funny how he's like, don't use my real name, but like, look at all these people I've been filming.
I know, but there's a huge difference there. Look, I don't want to get down on people who are into having adventurous sex out in public. Like,
it's the best.
Sometimes other people do it. I can't be a hypocrite. But, like, the one thing that I want to say is, when you're having sex in public, you have no expectation of privacy. So someone can very well surveil you, and that's on you. It's not really, I don't want to say it's not wrong for a person to film you, right? Because I think that the person filming you is wrong. They probably shouldn't do it. But you have no expectation of privacy when you're having sex in public. So if they're in a public park, yeah, you might get caught. And this guy, I honestly, like, he's tired of people doing drugs at the park across the street. He's tired of people doing wrong things. I mean, I don't want to say that
I like that he's trying to clean up his park. I think that his intentions are good.
Yeah.
You know,
Is it?
I don't think he's a bad guy. That being said, it still feels creepy. Of course the whole thing feels creepy. I think that his heart is in the right place.
No, it's not, because he says, I video everything. We either offer it to the police to use as evidence against them, or we put it up on YouTube. And that's where it goes fucking creepy, Marty. Everyone in public yes, you're right, they can be filmed. But when you take that footage and you put it on YouTube, all of a sudden, that is illegal.
So you just touched on an important distinction, and I agree with you on that. If you want these people to get caught because you feel like they're doing something illegal and it's wrong, it's one thing to report it to the authorities. It's another thing to try to destroy their lives by putting it up on YouTube. There's no need for that. That's
just a story on revenge porn.
No, I totally disagree with him putting the videos up on YouTube. He says, I have seen and recorded 50-some sex events. I don't know how many of those
Sex events, Marty.
Man.
God damn it. Figure it out.
This park is hopping.
Did
They're
you
having
guys?
sex events left and right.
What's really funny to me, there's a couple different really funny things. One, the coverage when they're talking about it. This couple was fondling one another, and then they just drove off. It's like, whoa. They fucking fondled and then drove away? That's crazy, man. What is that?
Dancing.
I know.
One couple was just
dancing
bumping and grinding in the park. They didn't even need music. That's how in love they were. It's really rather sweet.
It's so weird and creepy. And why is everyone having sex outside of Marty's house? And also, if I was in Sacramento, I would totally have sex outside of Marty's house now. Yeah, Marty.
Okay, so the point that I wanted to make is, I know that there have been parks in areas that I grew up in that had similar issues. So I grew up in Reseda, California, right? And there's this, there's a hill with all sorts of hiking trails, and a lot of people used to park up there do their business, and leave. And so the residents in that area were frustrated by it, so they started putting up surveillance cameras, and they were being very transparent about the fact that there were cameras everywhere, which is important, I think. And then another thing they did to deter, illegal activity or, public fornication is they had cops patrol that area and make sure that people didn't do things that residents in that area didn't want. I don't blame Marty for not wanting people to engage in illegal activity outside of his home. I totally understand where he's coming from. But he's going above and beyond when he posts these videos on YouTube, when he shares these videos with news organizations so they can share it with the world. I get that these people do not have an expectation of privacy, but at the same time, you should try to solve the issue, not gratuitously go after them in this way of posting stuff online.
It's messed up and it's creepy, and I bet Marty gets his rocks off a little bit.
I was gonna say, what came to my mind when hearing about this was that it's like, yeah, Marty, we get it. I feel you, dude. I understand, but you're making it weird. Like, you're really making it weird, Marty. And that's the issue.
Dude.
Like, hey, I wouldn't want some people boning in my backyard either. But
I personally don't care. I don't know why it's such a big deal, but whatever. I mean, if they want to bone, they want to bone. There's like a pregnant lady there. She's having sex. It's fun. It's great for her.
So, my best friend, she lives in an apartment complex, and, her kitchen window faces the bedroom window of a neighbor, and the neighbors, for some reason or another, like to have sex with the curtains open and you can see everything.
Am I her neighbor?
Oh my god. And so she told me that she's amused by it, and she and her boyfriend sometimes like to watch, right? Again.
Oh, like popcorn watch, or are they getting naked as well when they're watching? And they're like,
is this a sex event? Is what I think he's asking.
It's a sex event.
It's like a four-way with a wall between them.
Yeah, and then sometimes when you're living in an apartment complex, oh my god, sometimes when you're having a sex event, or someone else is having a sex event, I feel like people are purposely loud because they want other neighbors to
know
hear
how much fun they're having.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, how much fun is their event as opposed to the other events? So it's like, I bet you were sad you didn't get invited to this event.
Yeah.
Because this event is really fun.
Yeah.
We're cheering at our event, and your event is a little sad. Maybe you haven't had an event in a while,
Maybe we need a therapist to help you
having to throw an event. It's a lot to plan.
Yeah, exactly. You need an event planner.
Lots of things came out today.
Nailed it, Anna. Yes.
All right. Let's talk about concussions now.
Good. Super. Which is what sometimes you get them after.
What a segue.
Yes. All right. The New York Times recently published a new expose on the NFL and some of their ties to the tobacco industry, especially when it comes to the issue of concussions and the way the NFL studied concussions, worked with lawyers and lobbyists when it comes to these concussions, and the way that they put out information about them. Now, the NFL didn't like the report, of course, because it makes them look really bad. So they wrote to the New York Times and wanted a retraction. But the New York Times was not about to have it. Now, let me give you a little more context about their story. What the New York Times found was, while the NFL was studying concussions, there were a number of professional athletes that were retiring early because they were really concerned about their mental health. Well, at that time, the NFL releases this study talking about how there's no long-term damage. Everyone needs to calm down. But their studies were very flawed. In fact, they found that about 100 diagnosed concussions were omitted from these studies, which is, of course, disastrous. You can't have that. And Steve Young and Troy Aikman were among the professional athletes that were not included in the studies. So obviously there are some flaws there, and the New York Times wrote about it. Then they found that the NFL worked with the same types of lawyers and professionals that helped protect the tobacco industry when the tobacco industry was pretending as though smoking didn't lead to any long-term health consequences. Now, after that report came out, the NFL was pissed. This week, NFL lawyers sent a letter to the New York Times demanding that the Times' recent investigation into the league's bogus concussion studies be retracted. Now, the New York Times responded back with the following. As you know, the Times has a policy of correcting factual errors as promptly as possible. I have reviewed your letter with our editors and reporters, and nowhere does your letter identify any factual error that we have made in our reporting on the ties between the NFL and the tobacco industry. The crux of the letter is the NFL's complaint that the connections identified by the article between the NFL and the tobacco industry were not meaningful. Obviously, that is an opinion, not a fact. Look, I've criticized the New York Times in the past for certain articles, especially during the time of the Iraq War when we decided to invade, right? But this is a perfect example of the New York Times standing up to a huge organization.
A huge organization that's historically had its way when it comes to beating even another massive industry like Hollywood when the movie Concussion. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I'm just glad that the New York Times has no vested interest in airing NFL stories, because if that were the case and they were making some substantial advertising revenue from that, you know how quickly they would have retracted everything and it would have been like, everything's good, concussions don't exist. I swear to God.
Well, maybe there wouldn't even be the need for a retraction. Maybe
they would have never aired, yes.
Yeah, they maybe would never have written the story in the first place. So,
coming at this as a comedian, it's just some really good comic writing, I think. It's snarky, hits everything, but it's informative. I really enjoyed it, and it's so rare that you get to see this in journalism, unfortunately, when you have, again, like what Hassan was saying, standing up to a major corporation. That's awesome.
Yep.
And it kind of made me a little bit sad, to be honest, because you just don't see it that often anymore, where someone can kind of nut up and do it, and in such a...
Nut up? I
What
haven't
is
heard
that?
that expression
Nut up or shut up, NFL?
This is when I'm going to remind everyone that I am from Belgium, and I think I misused that expression.
Nut up?
Damn, nothing up?
That sounds like a sex event.
I know. Oh, God. Let's not bring back sex events. You guys are
Hey,
dirty.
so boy, did I think it was sure was swell. Give them top marks.
Yes.
It's just like they hid evidence. They did what NFL does, and they used to save lobbyists and consultants. And it's so foolish on the NFL's part to go out and make this a bigger deal than it actually is.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to bury it, of course the New York Times is going to respond like, "No, suck it. That's an opinion, not a fact." And then also, here are the facts.
Yeah.
That we're not going to retract because they're fucking facts.
Look, and also, there of course was a huge lawsuit against the NFL for not disclosing the impact of these concussions and all these, head injuries. And as a result, they agreed to settle with former players for $765 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but once you divvy it up among all the players that were impacted by this, it wasn't much. And think about the number of players who literally killed themselves because of the head injuries that they sustained from playing the game.
You know why the amount wasn't that big? Because they used the awesome lawyer teams that Philip Morris, the same tobacco industry that the NFL apparently called odious, which I do not know what that word means, but it sounds like something mean.
It's a negative.
It sounds negative.
Yes.
But the same industry they called odious, they happen to also use that awesome defense team to make sure that settlement was as low as possible.
Yes.
It's messed up.
It is messed up, but that's the way powerful organizations and corporations work in the United States. They have a lot of sway. They have endless resources to hire the best lawyers and defend themselves, and that's exactly what happened here. And look, there's a lot of talk about whether or not, we should ban football, and I don't think that things necessarily need to go from one extreme to another. I think what's important is transparency and giving people, adults, all the information they need to make an educated decision. And unfortunately, the NFL didn't give their athletes the ability to make those educated decisions.
They shouldn't. NFL, don't worry, man. There are still going to be plenty of adults that force their children into playing football for centuries to come, because there will be plenty of Americans that continue to watch your game.
Yeah, and look, I don't even necessarily think it's adults forcing their kids. A lot of kids grow up wanting to play, and they want that opportunity, and that's fine, but again, there needs to be transparency. People need to know what they're getting themselves into. MMA is another example. MMA fighters get hit in the head all the time. Boxing is another example.
Less concussions, though.
Yeah, it's just less concussions, but still, there are still instances of it. Do we ban everything? I don't necessarily think we need to do it. Just be transparent and open about what the risks are, because there are risks in everything that we do, including driving cars. So are we going to ban driving? No. You just have to be educated about what you're doing.
America.
Yes. All right. Let's do one more story. We have time.
Yay.
Oh, this is the leg one?
Yes.
This is awesome.
Young people in China continue with a pattern of unhealthy messages when it comes to body images. But who am I to complain? The U.S. does the same thing. Now, the recent trend coming out of China involves young women using iPhones to measure the meatiness or lack thereof of their thighs, and they're trying to prove a point about how thin they are. It's disastrous. So let's show you examples. So the whole point is to kind of use the iPhone to show that their thighs are not thick or they're skinny, whatever it is. Who cares? It's
ironic, positive, negative shirt.
Yeah, it is ironic. Okay, the point I want to make United States, it's all about like the thick, muscular thighs with a huge butt, right?
Yeah,
Kim Kardashian.
Curves are what Americans respond to.
Yes.
And knobby knees or whatever. A lot of these pictures, I just don't get. It's like I don't really know what I'm seeing here, but apparently that is the standard.
Yeah.
So I always feel weird about shaming someone to try and attain a specific beauty standard. I don't want to do that, but I can say that to me, it's not super appealing.
Or maybe you're just saying that because there's no way in hell an iPhone's gonna fit on them knees.
Dude, there's literally no way in hell, and I'm proud of that.
iPad knees.
Yeah, no, it's more like that's like a
MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro. No, let's go even bigger. That's like my TV. No, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that there are different beauty standards, and this isn't necessarily one that I get. But you know, if that's something that appeals to them, cool. As long as you do it in a healthy way. It's just strange.
I love how Chinese this trend is, though, because not only does it have a lot of messages about, you know, body dysmorphia or like unrealistic body goals, but it also has an iPhone 6 in it, so it has that hint of like super capitalist consumerist mentality that Chinese people have, where, and I'm generalizing, but it's not racist because, you know, they have a consumer culture in China now.
We have a consumer culture in the U.S. too.
Exactly,
yeah.
but don't you think it's kind of funny that it's like also an iPhone 6 needs? Like, if you have Android needs, then you're lower class. If
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's immediately. As soon as I saw that, I was like, can it be an iPhone 6s Plus? Like, or is it just iPhone 6? Like, what are the boundaries here?
I'm tired of body image stories. I'm exhausted from them. They frustrate me. I find them super annoying, and I'm so happy that I'm not a teenager or in my early 20s anymore. Because
must be nice.
I remember being in my early 20s and I would see something like this and I'd be like, oh my god. And now I'm like, I don't know what to talk to.
So you didn't put your... I literally, my one leg is still thicker than an iPhone 6 Plus. Well, I would not be a part of this trend, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But look, I think in a weird way, we kind of deserve this because it's just something that we want. Like as humans, I'm saying, as humans, this keeps coming back and this keeps coming back into our culture because we keep creating new ways at looking at people's bodies and changing the expectation. And I think it's just the norm. There's just no other way to do it.
Yeah, but I agree with Anna that it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah. Because we should know by now that everyone has a different body type.
I know, but I'm just saying you can't curb it though.
Exactly
like I'm saying, like you can't put a stop to it. Is what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that like this is where it stops. Like we've had enough. I'm just saying that it's exhausting because now with access to the internet from these wonderful iPhones, we can see that people all over the world have different body types, and that's awesome and great, and you do you, and trying to do these little challenges. You have like the underboob challenge and like the what can fit in my bra challenge. And
the collarbone. There was a collarbone.
Yeah,
it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
I think it's funny. It's
because
like
none of it's going to make anyone feel better.
Right.
If you're having to do a challenge,
if you have dope-ass skinny knees.
And by the way,
challenge.
Hold on. Another thing about all these challenges is it makes the assumption that everyone prefers the exact same body type. People prefer different body types. I've come across so many men who like super slender women, men who like really athletic women, men who like super curvaceous women. Or, you know, and by the way, I mean, you are who you are. You know, be healthy, make sure that you're doing what needs to be done to stay healthy. Like, there's no emphasis on that. The emphasis is, oh my God, like, does my iPhone, like, go across my knees? Because if it doesn't, I'm sad.
Chinese.
No, it's not.
And Anna, I would say that if you're participating in a beauty challenge, to challenge yourself to see if you can conform to these standards, the chances are you're probably not happy with the image already. You kind of know the end result of that challenge is like, am I good enough? And
well,
I hate
it's a chicken and egg situation, though.
Have to qualify their own beauty.
Are they unhappy because of all these challenges or because of the depictions
Well, I'm not
of
saying they're
bodies
like unhappy. I'm just
or are they becoming unhappy because of that?
I don't know.
I begin with, and they create these images.
Here's what I'll say. I don't think it adds
happy or not. I think this is stupid. And
it's
so
stupid,
focus on being a healthy individual, both mentally and physically. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a certain body weight or whatever. And move on with your life. And also, for all the girls who are worried about this in their teens and early 20s, it gets better as you get closer to 30 because you care less and you don't give a fuck. Good,
Grace.
Good. Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway,
make sure you noted that all those things.
I'm just gonna write that down.
Don't worry about it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate
it's gonna be
that.
all right.
All right, guys. We do have a post-game show for our members, so if you're a member, stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes with our live post-game show. For everyone else, you should be a member. Go to tytnetwork.com/join. We love you. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm ready.
Bye.